everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today I wanted us to take a look at the new Mary Jane palette from Melt Cosmetics, and I also wanted to compare it to the Natasha Denona Glam palette because I felt like they're very similar in that both of them are just a cool tone neutral palette, and so I thought it would just be kind of fun for us to take a look at both of them. We'll swatch both of them. I'm going to do one eye look on each eye from both of the palettes so we can kind of see how they perform, which ones layer better on top of which ones. Wanted to test out everything about both of them, and so hopefully this will be a fun video for you guys. And in case you are wanting to see swatches and eye looks of both of these palettes on a deeper skin tone, Kinky Sweat also did just a live literally today, so as you guys are seeing this yesterday, and so I'll make sure to link that live down below in the description. And so if you want to see it with a deeper skin tone, I would highly recommend checking out her channel. And then fun fact, I also during the Sephora sale picked up a Melt blush, and I did it. This is not from the Sephora sale, this is from Ulta, but the Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics highlighter, I did grab it, and it's this guy, and this is in the shade Iced. And so I'm gonna throw that on, as well as this is the Cali Dream blush. I was really wanting during the Sephora sale to get one of the Melt blushes that was one of the cream ones. Unfortunately, Sephora like either sold out insanely fast during the sale or just didn't restock like half their shit, because all of the cream blushes from Melt were sold out. So I did get this. It's a powder blush. It's very similar though to the shade that I was wanting that was on the cream side, but this is just a powder one. And so we're gonna throw that and the highlighter on real quick just to kind of test them out, see how they go. So let's go ahead and toss on the blush first. I am really getting into like orangey and yellowy toned blushes that I like to layer on top of pink ones, just because I think that for me and my skin tone, it kind of looks a little bit more like a natural type of blush rather than just being like shockingly pink or red on my face. I think part of that is because of those lethal blushes that I had gotten, where they just blend like an absolute dream, and so I pretty much am just like always wanting to find something similar to that. There's a part of me that's like, why do you keep searching when you already have the thing that you love? Why? All right, let's get into this highlighter, and I do have to say, her packaging on here, like this is a really nice packaging. I think it's super fancy looking. The mirror is like the whole entire thing on top of here. So, I mean, as far as the packaging goes, pretty nice. Okay, okay. That is a highlight. I was thinking I'll go in with my brush so that it's not quite so crazy. Well, we're in it now. It is a highlight. I can only imagine what this would look like if I'd used my finger. I would be blending for days to try and tone it down. I mean, I guess I'm just gonna have like a really, it's gonna be a healthy looking face day. I do think that the color is really nice. Dear God. It's like, all right. Tread lightly with the highlight because it's pigmented. But I gotta say, like, I don't mind it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the two palettes. So we will swatch them first, then we will get into eye looks with them. We will swatch the Mary Jane palette first, which, speaking of packaging from the Jaclyn Hill stuff, this packaging on here is super cute. I am very much liking it. It is like 3D and actually has like little rhinestones that she can shake around in there. So that is super duper cute, and you can see how it sticks up on there. Here she is. You can see really nice smoky cool tones. Okay, we will start off. Okay, consistency is interesting for the Mary Jane shade. It is a light gold. Well, that is like, it is a very pale gold. I would say maybe use that as like a topper. So I barely dug in with my finger to get that swatch, and you can see that shade is looking like it's hard pan. So that's super duper fun. Love that journey for me. Okay, the next metallic is feeling a little better. So first we have a matte shade Gaspar, which is this guy. Has a little bit of some olivey undertones to it. Then we have Sweet Lucy, which is the next metallic. Definitely more of a chunky formula. Really nice very bold shade. So no problems on that one at all. So hopefully maybe just the Mary Jane shade, you should just tread lightly and use it as a topper and just ever so soft touch it. Don't do what I do. All right, next up we have Bamba, which is another metallic shade. Not quite as thick and chunky as the Sweet Lucy shade, and also definitely more on the cool tone side, but that is just a very nice kind of charcoaly gray. Little bit of an olive undertone. I would say all of these so far, aside from the gold shade, have a little bit of an olivey undertone to them. Then we have Sinsemilla, which is another matte shade. And that is, let me get a little bit better at a swatch here. There we go. That's definitely more of a just regular brown with a little bit of a grayish undertone. Don't use your finger for it, that's fairly patchy. Then we have Santa Maria, which is another metallic shade. This is definitely more on your cool toned for sure. Very nice sparkly gray, really like that one. Then we have Rubia, which is another matte shade, and this is a more medium warm toned brown. A little bit of a mustard undertone to it. Then we have Beau, which is another more chunky metallic. And I would say this is more of a coppery brown. Then we have Mari, which is the lightest of the neutral mattes that we have in here. Very beigey tone. But that one swatched very nice and smooth. It has a really nice soft consistency to it. And then the last shade is another goldish metallic, and that is Cali. And that one is swatching the way that I expected Mary Jane to swatch. So a lot thicker of a consistency, but this is the entirety of the palette. So here are all of the shades. You can see that this guy, Cali, is more of a lighter champagne, whereas Mary Jane is more of that goldish undertone to it. So they are definitely two different shades. I would say that Mary Jane is more on your warm toned, whereas Cali is definitely the cool toned. So this guy is more cool toned, this one is your most cool toned, and then this guy would also be more of the cool tone. But everything else, maybe this matte shade, honestly, it's kind of hard to tell because it didn't swatch very well, so I'm gonna have to wait and see how it applies on my eyes. But so far, I would say not as cool toned as I was expecting based on pictures, so that's interesting. We could be very off base with thinking that it compares to the Glam palette from Natasha Denona. So let's go ahead and swatch that next, and then put them up against each other and see what happens. So first shade is going to be, so interestingly enough, none of these really have shade names. They just more so are like describing where to put it. So you're gonna have some like, I'm just gonna describe the colors to you, I feel like, because I'm like, I honestly don't know what to call them because they don't have shade names. So the first one is a pink metallic. And it's definitely a very light pink, but beautiful swatch. Then we have a more grayish metallic. Ooh, but as I swatch it, it has a bit of a brown. So in the palette, it looked more grayish, but after swatching, that definitely has a bit brown to it. Then we have a lighter champagne metallic. I would say almost peachy after swatching that. Then we have the first two matte shades. So we've got a medium brown on here. A little bit more of a cool toned brown, I would say. Then we have a very light beigey tone that I think has a little bit of a gray undertone to it. Yep, so you can see it's very light, but has a little bit of a gray. All right, then we have a more medium to deep brown matte shade. And then we have a more warm toned brown. Yeah, I was originally thinking that this guy might actually look a little more warm toned, but next to this one, it's definitely a more cool toned brown. And that is actually all of the mattes. And then we just deal with a whole bunch more shimmers, which I think is part of what I like about this palette so much, is that it's like all shimmers and they're so pretty. So next we have, again, kind of a more gold metallic. Very pretty. Ooh, that is a cool toned pearly shade, I would say. And then we have a more gray metallic that is next. Then I would say the warmest of the metallics is what's coming up next, because this guy is definitely more of a gold. Oh yeah, that is definitely a warm toned kind of coppery gold. Then we have what appears in the pan to be brownish gray, more of a satin than a metallic. Yeah, I would say brownish gray. This one would pair very nicely with that guy, I think. Then we have another kind of goldish, but I would put this more at champagne metallic. And that's really a satin, I think. It's similar in formula to this guy, not quite as thick as this metallic, but still very nice. Then we have a deeper gray metallic shade. Yeah, that's definitely also a nicer cool toned one. So I am seeing it's kind of a good mix of like warm and cool tones on this one. We do have one more shade left to swatch, and that's going to be more of a goldish one again. There's that guy. A little bit deeper of a shade than this one, but in the same family of color stories, I would say. So this is the two palettes up against each other. I definitely think that this guy has a lot more of your more warm tony browns in there, whereas this one is like a combination of cool tones and warm tones, where even the browns on here, several of them are more cool toned. I think you have, this guy is definitely warm, this one is warm, this guy a little bit warmer, and then everything else is more on the cool toned with kind of grayish undertones. I will, however, comment, this guy definitely has a lot deeper of shades, whereas this palette, you only have a few shades that are on the deeper side. Everything else is like medium or light shades. I think we should be able to come up with some interesting looks. I'm gonna throw the Melt one on this eye and then the Natasha Denona one on this eye. So first up, I think we will go into the Mare shade, which is that lightest of the transition shades. And I'm gonna try and do the same look on both eyes so that we can really see a comparison of like how they apply pigmentation, things like that. And so I'm gonna try and do something similar. All right, next shade that we're gonna go into is gonna be Rubia, which is the next deepest of the brown shades there. I think that blended out decently well between the two shades. I don't think it's a stark line. However, I will say that this Rubia shade, I'm struggling a little bit with it in my crease, that it's wanting to be a little bit patchy, so that's a little bit frustrating. I'm not sure if you guys can see that on there, that it's just got like right here, that it's for whatever reason creating like a spot where it's a little bit darker. And then up on my crease, it's not quite wanting to go with my skin. We're gonna leave it, and hopefully when we throw the metallics on, it'll be a non-issue. So then the next shade we're gonna go into is Sinsamilla, which is the deepest of the shades, and that was also the one that swatched the patchiest. We'll see how that guy goes. I'm hoping that that was just, you know, my bad on the swatch, and that as I apply it with the brush, that it won't be as bad. I think that actually ended up applying much better than I expected, so that went on really well, and there's actually like zero fallout from that, so that was very, like, it literally went like right where I wanted it to go, so that was very nice. I still, this Rubia shade that's that medium one in the middle is like, I'm gonna go over the top of it with the Mari shade just to see if I can blend it out a little bit better, because that's really bugging the shit out of me right now. Yeah, so the Rubio shade is not my favorite, but everything else so far has gone pretty well. The Sinsemilla shade, we can just disregard that swatch. So that was definitely just a me issue, because applying it to the eye, it went on very, very nice and smoked out really well. You know, why don't we just do a blend of Mari with Sinsemilla on the under eye and just kind of blend those two together? I'm gonna go into Sinsemilla because I have no doubt that's gonna show up. But again, like, it's not going everywhere. There's no fallout with it. I really like this shade. That is like a perfect smoking out the back corner shade. So now we're gonna get into the metallic shades. I think that the first shade that we're gonna get into, so we're only gonna do 2 metallic shades on the lid, and then we'll save the third for the inner corner. So the first one we're gonna do is gonna be Santa Maria, which is the gray tone, and then we're gonna blend it out with this guy Bamba, which is the deeper one. I am getting some fallout, and interestingly enough, not as much as showing up on my eye as I was expecting. I thought this was going to be super duper pigmented. And then we're going to go into Bamba next for that back half. Well, that certainly smoked it out, for sure. Let's go ahead and do the inner corner. For that, we're going to use Cali, which is that more cool toned of the 2 gold metallics. Well, that's performing a lot more like I would expect a flaky glitter to perform. I'm gonna go ahead and tightline and throw on mascara, and then we'll move on to the Natasha Denona eye. All right, so now we're gonna be starting on the Natasha Denona side, and so I'm gonna try and use as close to the same shades as I can so we really get like a similar eye look going. I'm not mad at this eye at all. I think that the gold shade, I do kind of wish it worked a little bit better, but it's okay. Overall, I think that it turned out pretty nice. It is certainly a smoky eye. So on the Natasha Denona side, since I don't have shade names to tell you, I'm just gonna point at the shades. So for the first matte shade, I think the closest one is going to be this guy right here. That's the lightest one that the Mary Jane palette had. They didn't have quite that light of a shade as the one next to it, so we're just gonna start with that guy. Alright, so far so good. I think they're applying fairly similar. Next shade, let's see here. What would be the next closest brown? Oh my gosh. I missed a shade when we were swatching. So they do have a black shade in the Natasha Denona palette. So there is that guy. I'm like, why am I not seeing that on there? So that adds a little more depth to the palette, where I was like, I feel like as I was looking at them, that there was a similar amount. Okay. I retract my comments from earlier. There is your black shade. So next up, we're gonna go into this kind of brownish shade, which is the next deepest one, and that'll go in the middle of the lid. Then we will go into that black shade for the outer corner. Okay, so far I think that blended out pretty well. Next up, we're going to do the same thing on the lash line that we did before. So we're gonna start off with that lightest shade. I will say already, just on first inspection, that the matte shades on this eye appear a bit more cool toned versus this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see what the end result is, because I think that this guy was more on the brownish warm tone until I threw on those metallics, and we're going to go in with similar metallics on this eye. So we'll see what happens if this is just a super cool toned versus this guy where there's a little bit of a warm undertone to it. Also, so far on this, no fallout whatsoever, which is just like the melt shades that were the matte shades. There was no fallout from those at all, so it'll be interesting to see if the metallic shades have any fallout since the melt ones did. All right, so we're gonna start off, I think, with this guy as the inner half, and then we'll go to this guy on the outer half, and then this guy will be on the inner corner, just because I don't think, we actually don't have two gray toned metallics like you do in the melt one, where you have these two super duper deep metallics that are gray toned. We really just have this one, and it's definitely lighter, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Definitely lighter. Like, look how much of that lightened this eye up already. Smidgen of fallout, but definitely not so much as what the melt one was having. I'm only having like 2 specks. That outer shade is definitely going to be more of a satin rather than a metallic, so it'll be interesting to see how it applies. Then we're going to go into the inner corner with this guy right here, which is that more champagne-y shade, although I really like that pink one. I think sometime in the future I'm going to have to dip into that guy, because that would just like transform a cool toned gray look to throw that guy on the inner corner. Ooh. And this is definitely coming across like a normal metallic on my brush, so hopefully, yeah, this is definitely applying way better. This is what I was expecting. And that's what I got on that one. It's already like fading into nothing. All right, I'm gonna slap on mascara and tightline it, and then we will be back. All right, and we're back. So I'm gonna come in close so you guys can see both of the looks and some of the differences between the two. Even though they are similar, neither palette has the same shades of metallics, so they are definitely different in that regard. I think that the matte shades are a little bit more similar with some of the tonal qualities that they have, but as far as like the metallics go, they are very, very different from each other. And so I think that that was kind of interesting for me, because I expected them to be much more similar than what they ended up being. Both are very nice, cool toned, smoky eyes for sure, but I think that out of the two, I think you get more shade range with the Natasha Denona one, because it does have like all the scales on there for like light tones to deeper tones. But on the Mary Jane side, you definitely have like within the deeper shades much more range on there. And so I think that for someone with a lighter skin tone, I would go with the Natasha Denona palette, just because I think that you're gonna get more bang for your buck with that one. But if you have a deeper skin tone, I would actually go with the Mary Jane palette. The only shade that I was really super duper disappointed with within the Mary Jane palette, as far as like metallics go, is this lighter gold shade that I'm already hitting hard pan on after touching it once. So that's super fun for me. And then as far as the matte shades go, this guy right here was just, it's not great. On the Natasha Denona side, I didn't really have any issues blending anything out. It all worked really, really well. The metallic shades blended together very, very nicely as well. And so I think quality-wise of the shades, the Natasha Denona one wins for me. They are actually very similarly priced, interestingly enough. The Mary Jane palette is 58 bucks. The Glam palette from Natasha Denona is 65. And so when you consider the number of shades that you're getting, you've got 10 shades in the Mary Jane palette, and then you have 15 in the Natasha Denona. So you are in fact also getting more shades in the Glam palette than you are in the Mary Jane. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments down below. I'd be super interested to hear what you guys think. If you guys have picked up either palette, what have you noticed about the quality of the shades? I know that I didn't touch into even half of the shades in either palette, and so let me know if you guys want me to just do multiple looks with just one of the palettes where you can see all of the shades being used and how they work and if they're good and they blend and whatever you want, let me know and I can definitely do that. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't. Either way, let me know what you guys thought. And other than that, that was my comparison on the two palettes, and you guys just go have a good one.